Off we go, folks. Off we go. Just going to fire up the flux capacitor here, otherwise known as OBS. Yes. Oh, we're boosting. We're boosting. Double. No. Okay. Excellent. Sorry, Discord gave me some interesting news there regarding our boost. All right. Away we go. CouchBot, whenever you are ready. We're gonna wait for CouchBot to kick in to get the live stream. We should be streaming right now. We are streaming, so if you're over on the YouTubes, I'm literally just waiting for CouchBot to say, "Hey, Chris is doing his thing." But this video is or tonight's session, the live stream. This live stream is really all focused on Figma and Figma file organization. So many of our projects are just literally littered with styles and artifacts and discarded things, and I wanted to take a moment to kind of work through some of the different ways that we can do a better job of organizing our files. So much of the stuff that we work on, I don't know if you're like me, but so many of the things that I have that I've created are just, they're like rat's nest. All right, they're files just literally strewn everywhere, and I haven't really done a good job, frankly, of organizing them. So I'm gonna take time tonight to work with you and kind of, there we go, CouchBot, way to be. CouchBot just fired the live stream link into the channel. If you have questions, know that I've got the Discord channel up and running off to the side of the screen this evening. So as we jump through, I'm actually going to move it a little closer so I can see it right away. But as we go through, if you have questions, I want to encourage you to ask away. But with CouchBot firing away, and I do know that I know that Shane's in here and Thule's in here. So I want to go ahead and just get us started. If you're not able to follow along live, you can always catch the recorded version of this a little later. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to Figma, share my screen, and away we go. So this is Figma, and if you're anything like me, you have a plethora of screens just littering your recent files, and probably even more in your collection of drafts. All right, we've all seen our folders over time just become littered. I just created this afternoon, and I was at Northwestern helping students work through some publication design work that they were doing. It's like kinks and curls. What project does that relate it to? I was just working on a bunch of things. And in working on this, I have just like a ton of like little things over here. There's no real structure to anything. We create files like this all the time, and sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's okay because, frankly, these files are, it's Figma, so it's okay to have throwaway files. But in looking at this, collection of files that are over here in drafts, you'll notice that like this wireframing kit has like a nice display to it. It's so much better than really any of this other junk. Why is that? Why does that have like a nice display by comparison to some of the other files that are here? And I wanted to go ahead and jump into that, and you can see as I open it, it opens on, this looks very different. And this is because it opened here because of where this is the last place that I left it. But if I come over to layers, you'll see there's a pages panel here in the upper left. And as we go down, if I click intro, there is an intro page here. And the intro page is sized. It's roughly it's rectangular. It's 1920 on 1080, and this is all by itself. There's nothing else in here. This has been put together for us by a Russian development group, and it's a free resource. I would love to tell you that I could pronounce that name, but I cannot. But regardless of that, this is a cover, and pretty much anything that shows up in the first slot here, this one's called intro. I've done it also. If I go over to my tutorial batch, I've got it here, and this is just going to be called cover, I believe. Yeah, this is cover, and then I have components, and then I have like a test page. But if you've got something, whatever that first page is, that's going to directly translate into a preview for your home page, for the actual Figma dashboard. And isn't this such a cleaner way to go through your Figma files than this here? This is fine. It's a wireframe, but unfortunately, because it's the first thing in the panel, the preview on it is literally the wireframe. So if I was really going to do this right, I would come back over to this wireframe example. I'd create a new page. I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to call this cover. And cover is going to move all the way to the top. And the first thing I really need for this is I need to put a frame on it. So I'm going to go grab a frame. I will come over here. I'm not going to use paper, but I'll come over here and use desktop. And I'm going to use the MacBook Pro just because it's got a reasonable shape to it. So there's 1440 by 900. I'm going to go ahead and put a background color on it. I'll just pick out the green that I use quite a bit. I'll make this one a little different. I'll make it blue. And for this one, I'm going to simply draw in some language here. So cover example. I'm going to use my latest favorite big shoulders display. Put it in all caps. Make it really big and beefy and crazy. Put like a crazy size on it. So there's cover example. And what's going to happen here when I'll drag this to the center. I'll put it like 240. Go ahead and center that up. Center it up that way. I'm just making it a cover example for us. I'm going to go ahead, it says cover example. I'm going to just basically say cover here, cover frame. And now I will save it. And wireframe example, if you go down, you can see wireframe is still there. But here I have the cover example. And then I'll come back over to my preview. And not right away, but sometime really soon, this will update and it will say cover example. And there it happened. So this allows you to begin organizing your dashboard. And this is so much easier. This is so much easier. You know, if I could update this again and say, instead of cover example, wireframe example. And I could, you know, let's be honest, that's not really great. I'll say wireframe example, put this in like a medium. I will say 200. I'll tighten this up and I'm doing this because I'm fussy. I'm really extra today. I'll save that up, and we'll come back. And here in just a few seconds, this will update. Instead of saying cover example, it'll say wireframe example. And this gives us a unique way to really quickly go through and clean up our cluttered, utterly destroyed Figma dashboard. And that's one of the easiest things that I can think to really enhance your ability to sift through what is inside of your Figma, inside of Figma for you. Just put a cover, utilizing pages, put a cover on all your files. Doing that will make this infinitely easier to sift through. And as you can see, it does tend to take a second to update. And yes, I know it auto saves, but sometimes it just feels good to try to save it. If you've got questions, obviously I'm checking out the feed to make sure that it looks like Shane Williams also just submitted his wireframe for his case study. Good job, Shane. Super excited for that. But if you have questions, go ahead and fire those into the general channel. I'm going to keep moving on here. We've walked through the first really easy thing to do to make life easier on you. As you can see, most of my files do not have that pretty display cover to it. But let's go over here. Let's go over here and Puppy Animate. We'll take an opportunity to go through Puppy Animate. And last week we talked about the necessary steps that you need to take when you're creating a new project. And as you can see in the components file for this, or I'll go to assets, you can see that I have a few assets that are specifically related to this particular project. But as you know, not every project needs start from scratch. I created this project from the ground up, but I didn't have to. I could have pulled in a project like this. And if we look at this project, what you'll find is that there are a lot of file options available. Let's look at the UI elements and zoom out. These are all the iOS 13 UI elements. That's a lot of stuff. Okay? Now, I've had this question before, and I've seen people do this where they get a prototyping kit like this, and they look through and they go, oh, you know what? What I want to do is I want to utilize this layer right here. And then they'll come over and they'll create a new file, and they'll say, oh, well, obviously I need a frame. And this is just taking a second. They'll say frame, and then they'll come over here to phone. They'll say iPhone X, and then they will drop in. They'll drop in this file. And technically that's okay. The problem I have with it is you shouldn't have to decouple everything from an existing project to utilize it. So here, I understand we've got all of these files, and it's like, oh my God, there's so much here. There's so much stuff here, right? Yes. However, I don't want to have to copy just the stuff that I need into a new file when all I really need to do is go, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to say project, and here I'm going to put this right here underneath intro, and I'm going to build my file right here. And I'll say, not tablet, but phone. I'll say iPhone X. And now I can utilize all the assets that come available. Let's see, I want to go navigation. And part of this is just understanding what's available to you. So here's the navigation, and I'm dragging in search. And off you go. You've started building your project. And we come back here to layers. We go to project. All this other stuff is still in here, and that's fine. But now you don't have to like copy paste into a new file. This is the tendency to do this. I believe comes from the fact that at one point in time we did not have the ability to create new pages. It was like we could create the assets, but we couldn't actually create new pages. This has now been around for a couple of years, but now that you have the ability to create new pages, it really is a benefit to have all of these assets available to you, so that you can just drag things over. Like if we go into, let's go to controls and table view, and sometimes you gotta just click on this stuff to pull it out. So if I pulled over this, this is obviously for some sort of table view. If I can go back and get table view row, some of this stuff is just sheer amount of hidden parts. And if this view gives you trouble, you can always come over to layers and go, hey, I really need to see tabbed app parent. So here we go, parent view. This is really what I'm looking for here. Looking for the section heading and the title. And then I just come back over here to project and I bring that information in. And that's the same exact method as if you went over to assets and drug it over. And then I'll drag this down and I will bring that to the foreground. And now you've got the beginnings of an iOS table view. Thule had a question here. Let me take a look at this. Chris, is there any way to use tags on files? So when you're looking in the search toggle, we can search for specific tags that will relate to projects that have a lot of different pages. Feel free to answer another time. No, that's fine. The easiest way to check that, Thule, I haven't really thought about that, but let's go ahead and check out what some of that could be. I'm guessing that if we were going to, let's go out here, and so let's do this for wireframe example. If I hop into this, so I've got share, show in project, rename, duplicate, delete, remove from recent. So I'm wondering if I could, like instructions, if I typed in here, say just steps, hashtag steps. I'm just wondering if that would help in the search. So if I go to, let's go back up here to files, and now I'm going to say steps, and no matches for steps. Let's see, sort it by file name, date created, last modified. So it doesn't appear right away that is an option. I put steps in here. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't. If I said wireframe steps instead, I'm just curious if that comes up. I know that that's more of a traditional, like I'm searching for steps now, and it still says no files no matches found filing steps. So here's a lot of wireframes. Sorted by relevance. I want to literally sort by file name. I am curious why wireframe, like I've got a lot of wireframes here. I am curious why this wouldn't show up there just under a straight search. iOS 13. Here you can see a bunch of old files. Yeah, so there's the US, the UI example. Let's type in example. I wonder if some of this is related to, indexing. Like we just saved those changes, and without this being indexed in the database yet. I'm not sure if that's causing an issue. I see you typing though. Just had a lot of files in Figma on various projects, and inside of those projects I'd like to hashtag different pages based on relevance inside of that project. That's not a bad idea. I want to hop over here, and it does not seem like I can search by like an internal tag. So I've got puppy here. All right, preppy puppy, and I'm just curious if I type in puppy. Well, that preppy puppy comes up, but that was like a different thing. I want to go by last modified. I want to go by date created, file name, relevance. Yeah, it doesn't appear to be. What about hashtag steps? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you said hashtag steps. Yeah, it's not doing it for me. That's disappointing. Disappointing, but not. I'm not sure that I am totally shocked either. The search mechanism appears to be fairly rudimentary, and the fact that I'm over here in recents, and I've got wireframe and wireframe step, like wireframe doesn't come up, even though the file is called wireframe. Like, that's not showing up. Why isn't it showing up? I don't know. I don't know right away why it's not showing up. So, there's a limit on the title of the page. Yeah, it does look like, Thule, it does look like this could be a growth opportunity for ye old Figma. I still like it, but it doesn't appear that search through the files is all that robust. I would prefer it if I could actually type in search here in the dashboard and actually get into the data inside of those files. Like that's the level of search that I'm looking for, and I don't see it right now. Back to where we were though. One of the big issues that I've had again was I've got a template, but I'm copying the things that I need over to a new file because I can't be bothered to just build these files inside of the project itself. The other thing to remember is that when we get into animate, the animation really requires us to move these files around. So if I had this this title heading, and I was going to go from one to the next, I was going to make it look like this is clicked. This is where I would need to come in and do some sort of adjustment on the background. Let's see here. So let's go to the background. Let's update this. Let's go to color. 333. So that's only going to color that bit of the background. Let's try to find the rest of this. So that's muted. That's the background. It's table view. Okay, left detail title. Muted. Controls. So that gets half of it, and I know what's going on here. It's this other table view that's getting in the way. If I come back here now and I type in controls and do 333, it'll be the whole thing. So what we really are looking out for is this combination of background elements, and to get this to animate to a hover, So if I hovered over this and I want it to show up as, say, blue with white text, I now need to come over here and say, okay, this is iPhone 1, so this is table 1, and this is going to be table 2. And now over here on table 2, I need to say that the controls background is, and I'm just gonna do this blue that we sometimes will associate with Apple. Let's go ahead and pull this background in. Oh, I'm sorry, I've grabbed the wrong background. I'm going for this one right here. Now, if we grab that, so now that's highlighted. We can even change the text color here from black to white. And essentially, we now need to go into the prototype and pull these two across. Now, the big thing we want to do is we want this to smart animate, and we want this to smart animate when I hover over it. So I'm going to hover over this, and that's going to trigger it to navigate to. So let's go ahead and look at this in a prototype. And what's important to realize is that, keep in mind, this prototype exists within something that has a cover. So where you create the prototype matters, not the top level. The top level does not have to be a prototype. Now when I go to hover, you can see that comes out and it goes away. Now the question I have is, it's hovering when I go over the entire page, which is unfortunate because that isn't what I was going for, but it's because of where I linked it. What I actually need to do is I need to link it from here. So now only when I hover over the title will it do this, and when I hover anywhere else, it will go back to normal. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, as you can see, I'm hovering all over, but if I come up, oh, I broke it because I broke it. Yeah, it's on tap. It needs to be while hovering. Navigate to. Okay, so the change, you have to come in and dedicate what that interaction is going to be like again. Now, if I come in and hover, you can see no click necessary. It's now hovering as if I was gently pressing on it. That's the sort of prototype move that we're looking for, but that's only possible when we have two tables. The elements remain named the same. So here, table 1 and table 2, and I'm gonna close this up to where we can just see just the page that we're on. So table 1, this is table 1, that is table 1. These, to my knowledge, have to remain named the same. So if I click here and change this to, say, table view cell 2, that could create a problem. Let's go ahead and take a look. And do you see now something different has happened? There's a little bit of a delay on this background to the left of title. I want to go back and change this now to just be table cell 1, because I believe that it's all following. It's all following together pretty well when they're named the same. Let's go ahead and test it. Yeah, it all acts as a unit if the name is the same. So while you can name the pages differently, so this is table 1 and this is table 2, these interactions have to have the exact same name. All right. I've also had this issue come up quite a bit. So when working with students, I'll see something like this where, let's delete cancel away. Let's put cancel back in there, but let's move cancel here. Okay, so cancel's clearly in the foreground, right? I mean, it's there. It's right there. However, when we come over, it's not showing up. Now, it will blink in, and you're like, well, why is it blinking in? I have no idea why it's showing up now, but then it's not going away. This is all about, is it inside of the frame or not? As you can see right now, cancel is there. It will show up. But if it's not dragged inside of table 1, it's not considered to be part of this design. Also, it really needs to be at the same level it was before. So if we go into table 2 and begin looking around, you can tell that cancel is not out here by itself. Let's go ahead and test it to see what happens. You see how it kind of blinks? Like cancel is there, but when I go to hover, it blinks, and it's because the page is saying, oh, well, this is at a different level than it was before. So if I come back over here, what we really have to do is we have to look in here and say, okay, table 2, where is cancel at? It's in the grouped header. It's probably in this thing called header. Nope, that's the grouped header. It's in this top navigation cancel. So I've got to reorganize this inside of bars and navigation. And right here it says cancel is there. I'm curious if I delete that away. Cancel is in fact there. So let's go ahead and refresh this. And now that issue is gone. So, there are a few different ways that we can utilize Figma to organize our files. It's really helpful, particularly when you're in here working with Figma, to use the projects that you have available to you. So rather than digging through everything in recents, if you, like, for instance, let's take this orientation. If I drag orientation over here to New Pragmatic, orientation now, it won't show up in drafts at all anymore. It's over here in recent because it's been recently edited. But when I go to New Pragmatic, it's right there. And as you can see, I have a lot of files here that could benefit from a label like this. This wireframe example cover is really helpful. It's going to make a dramatic improvement over really all of this mess that I have. But that's something that you have to dedicate time to do. Let's go ahead and do that for orientation while we're here. I'm just going to go ahead and straight up copy everything here for this wireframe example. And I'm going to come into, let's go into New Pragmatic. I'll copy this. This is going to look goofy because I've got a lot. Look at all these files. Look at all these files. This is crazy. How the hell could I possibly have this many files called intro? That is atrocious, right? Well, rather than focus on that for too long, I'm just going to say new page. So I'm going to add a new page. I'm going to say cover. I'll put that to the front. On that, I'm going to say orientation. And, because it's me, I'm going to go ahead and change that background color as well, because that's not my green. That's my green. And this shouldn't be black. It should be white. And I'm going to save it. Let's go back over. And this orientation file, I've used it a lot. I use that file a whole lot. I should go back through and begin using the ability to smartly name these files. And that really points us toward what we're going to be doing next week. What we're going to be doing next week is, instead of focusing on how we're organizing these files in pages and how we go through and utilize the frame naming conventions and whatnot, next week we're going to be focusing on plugins. There are several amazing plugins that really help us organize our files, clean up things, rename, all of those aspects. Next Wednesday at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be digging into not only are we smarter about reorganizing our files, we're going to be smarter about how we use plugins and when and where we use them. So if there aren't any other questions in the queue, which there have been some great questions. Truly, thank you so much for asking questions this evening. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I really wish the orientation update would pop in there because it feels so satisfying to see those changes finally take place. But again, the dashboard takes a minute to refresh. It is browser based anyway. But without further ado, I'm Chris Courtney. Thank you so much for joining me for this short presentation on better file organization inside of Figma. We talked about utilizing templates, creating space for you to do your own work inside of those templates, how file organization impacts very important aspects of like Smart Animate, and also how to put covers onto your Figma projects so that you can sort through them more elegantly and get away from your dashboard looking like this and looking more like that. And undefined is not a function. I'm not quite sure why that's coming up, but undefined is not a function. We will get to the bottom of that. Anyway, I'm Chris Courtney. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, and I will chat with all of you soon. Take care.